Hey, travel enthusiasts, welcome back to another exciting episode of No Tourist Allowed. I'm Mike Putman.
And I'm James Ferrara. Before we dive into today's topics, we have some thrilling news to share with you all.
We're hosting an incredible travel destination raffle giveaway, and you won't want to miss out on this opportunity.
One lucky listener is going to be the winner of a luxurious 3-night, 4-day, all inclusive trip for two to a mystery destination. We're keeping the location a secret for now, but trust us, it's going to be an unforgettable experience.
Now, here's how you can increase your chances of winning if you haven't already. Head over to notouristallowed.com. Find the button that says giveaway and join our newsletter. By doing so, you'll automatically receive 5 raffle entries.
But we're adding a fun twist to the giveaway. If you think you can guess the mystery destination, go ahead and send us your best guess. Whether you're right or wrong, you'll earn an additional 5 points just for participating.
That's right. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. So sign up for our newsletter, take a shot at guessing the destination, and you could be jetting off on the trip of a lifetime.
Stay tuned for more details on how to enter and when we'll be announcing the lucky winner. Trust us, you don't want to miss out on this incredible travel opportunity.
Now let's get back to today's episode and keep your ears open because we might just drop a few hints about the mystery destination throughout the show. Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Putman.
And I'm James Farrar. Welcome to No Tourists Allowed. As opposed to some other, in an alternate universe, is there a podcast called Tourists Allowed? There might be.
Possibly, yeah. And I had to catch myself yesterday. I was writing something up and I put no tourist without the S allowed, which it's notouristallowed.com too, for those of you who like to go visit our website.
Yeah. And what we're about is helping you travel better. Now, Mike and I both have a combined, I don't know, it's getting close to 100 years now in the travel industry, seriously, and deep in the travel industry, at a very executive level, deep into technology, deep into relationships with all the major brands that you know. So we really do try to have a lot to bring to you, a lot of value to bring to you about understanding travel, how it works, what your options are, and how to get the most out of it, how to travel in a way that is truly memorable and not just touristic, right? That's what we're about.
Yeah, authentic is the word. How to be there and not look like a tourist and not wear the flowery lace shirt, but to have a good time and immerse yourself in the local culture.
Yeah. But we did have an interesting episode not too long ago where we talked about whether or not there is too authentic, right? So there are things that could be very, very authentic, but not necessarily very pleasant for travelers. So it's an interesting fine point, an interesting debate about what it really means to travel authentically. But we want to get you out of the big box hotels and we want to get you out of the crowded landmarks and to see something and feel something more authentic about the places you're visiting. Part of what we do here, Mike, and I should say up front, uh, we do some giveaways here. And a little bit later, we'll talk about what that giveaway is this time around. But we've given away cruises and vacations. So just another reason for you to come and visit with us once a week and listen in. But what we also do here is keep an eye on the headlines, right? And on the news, because like anything else, and maybe more than anything else, travel is changing all the time. New stuff all the time. And Mike, you've had your reading glasses on lately, and you've caught a couple of interesting things.
Yeah. Being in the space, times are a changing. And one thing I want to share out is the Department of Transportation ruled just within the last week. They passed some very significant rulings that are going to change how consumers are compensated when airlines make a boo-boo or something happens. And as many of you, I'm sure, have experienced um, in the past, where you've flown and your flight got canceled or it got significantly delayed, and you know the way the industry has changed. 20 years ago, if your flight was delayed overnight, they would hand out, certificate. Here's a hotel. Here's a food voucher. They'd kind of take care of you. And today that happens sometimes, but not all the time. Um, and also when the airlines have canceled flights, they often will try to give you a voucher back rather than give your money back. And so the Department of Transportation has just came in with some pretty significant changes that are going to require the airlines to refund your form of payment automatically if they cancel a flight for any reason. So even if the flight is if it's a weather delay, they are required to refund you back in cash, or refund your credit card most likely. Um, if you so desire, and that will be the default setting. Also, if your flight is significantly delayed, which I think they have, that the word significantly means 3 hours on a domestic flight and 6 hours on an international flight, if I remember correctly, then again, it could be mechanical, could be their uh, captain can't fly anymore because the flight was delayed and that would put him over on his hours. Whatever the reason is, they're going to be required to give you back a full refund. Or and you can choose to be rebooked as well. So you still have that option, but at least for people, like if you're going to a wedding as an example, right? And the wedding's on Saturday and you're flying out on Friday night and the last flight of the day is canceled, you don't want a voucher. I mean, it's going to be too late to get to the wedding. You just want your money back, right? Which seems really fair.
And the voucher processes and the refund processes were a little difficult to navigate through. And this just clarifies things for everyone. Also, part of this new ruling and this new legislation is around upfront, like transparent pricing too. There was just too much going on where, you bought the ticket for $500 only to find out that there's another $200 worth of fees and things you have to pay for, like luggage and so on. So it's not really $500; it's really $700, right? So this drip pricing, where they keep adding just a little bit more, and not just airlines, but as we've talked about here before, this was happening a lot at hotels, where you were quoted an amount per night or an amount for the stay. But then, in addition to that, and particularly when you checked in at the hotel, being hit with another $30 or $40 or $50 in resort fee per day to stay at that hotel. And it wasn't properly, clearly disclosed up front. So we have some legislation that has passed in California, now legislation that is passing at the federal level that says you can't do that anymore. The price you show me at the beginning has to include everything that's mandatory in order for me to purchase that flight or stay at that hotel. And that's a really good change. We've had sort of truth in advertising laws in travel for a long time, and it's applied for to other things like car rentals. I'm not sure you guys know this, but you might go into a particular market, and I know Las Vegas is a bad one, where the car rental might be $35 a day, but then the airport fee, tourist fee, local tax, everything that gets applied to that could be double that. And in other words, $35 a day might only be 50% of what you're actually paying. The fees are just as much as the car rental. And for years, it wasn't priced like that. All you saw was $35. And then when you go to pick up the car or you finish your rental, you see all the rest. We got to upfront pricing in car rentals, I don't know, it must be 10 years ago, but for some reason, air and hotel were not subject to the same rules. So these are really good improvements for travelers. Um, Makes it fair and makes it more competitive. Competition now will help drive some of these costs down. That's what we've seen decade after decade. If you level the playing field and everyone has to disclose the same things, competition will now come into play and we might see some better pricing for consumers.
Yeah, exactly. So Southwest Airline, great example. You don't have to pay for 2 bags, you don't have to pay for seat assignments, um, and with other carriers, you do. Southwest might be $30 more, on the upfront ticket price as it stands today, but it would be a lot better value because you're not paying for your bags and you're not paying for a seat assignment. Also, I would like to add that, if your flight is canceled with these new rules, you are going to be the airlines will be required to refund any additional fees you paid for things like seat assignments or prepaid Wi-Fi or bags. So you would think that's just like obvious, right? That the airline should do. Evidently, they don't. So they're going to be required to today. Well, as soon as this goes into effect. So let me throw out a disclaimer. They're saying that the rules from the DOT will be implemented over the next 6 to 12 months. So these are not going to be immediate. But hopefully the airlines will adopt these prior to the DOT mandate, and hopefully we'll see some change by the time the mandate does roll around.
I do want to say, Mike, that and we've said this many times here before, you keep in mind that things that are outside the airline's control are not covered by this.
No, it is.
It is even a weather delay.
Whether they have to refund you. Yes.
Wow, guys, I was not aware of that. So thank you, Mike, for that. That's a big deal because in the past, airlines were able to point to weather as the cause for the delay and then say, essentially it's an act of God. They're not responsible. If this is covering that, then it really is a huge change. Another part of this has to do with baggage, which, as we said, is one of those extra fees you can pay. And if they lose your baggage or delay your baggage, they have to pay you the fee back. Not really. I mean, that's great. Not really a big deal because the big deal is they may have lost your bag. And you do have some coverage on your bag if they lose it, but they will only give you up to a certain amount for the contents of your bag. And if you're a business traveler like Mike or like me, well, actually, I won't say Mike because he doesn't check a bag, but like me, I'm checking a bag. It has 3 suits, 4 pairs of shoes, you know, alligator belt, all kinds of stuff. I mean, literally, there's thousands of dollars worth of clothing in my bag. And the limitation from the airlines, I think, is generally $500 for a bag.
It may be a little bit more, but it's certainly less than 1,000. And like if you have a nice Toomey bag, your bag costs more than $1,000.
So you can get supplemental insurance for your baggage. And we always recommend that you buy travel insurance, that you buy one of these great annual plans, which is what I use because I travel so much. So I don't buy insurance for every trip. I buy an annual plan from my travel advisor, who mine happens to be with Allianz, and it covers me for the whole year, but there's supplemental baggage coverage. So if I get 500 or 600 from the airline, I'm getting another 5 or 600 from Allianz or 1,000, whatever it is. So at least I have a chance of recouping some of my real loss there.
Yeah, and if you have a premium credit card, a lot of those will have that supplemental baggage coverage as well too. So check that before you buy additional insurance. So James, you want to talk about our giveaway and what we're doing for this giveaway?
Sure. So we've been talking about it for just a couple of weeks now into our third season of No Tourists Allowed. The last giveaway we did was at the end of last year, 2023. We gave away a luxury Virgin Voyages cruise for two, a 7-day cruise for two on the premium cruise brand Virgin Voyages, and that was really exciting. So this time we thought we'd go land side, and we have a 4-day, 3-night, all inclusive resort vacation. And we have not given you any more details until today. And we're going to start with a little bit of fun with you. We want you to guess where that destination is, where we're going, where you're going on this 4-day, 3-night, all inclusive vacation for two people. And we're going to have some instructions a little bit later on what to do to get your name put in the hat, to get your entries in for the drawing. The drawing will be made later in the season, towards the beginning of the summer. And there are different things you can do every week to get multiple entries into the drawing. So, in terms of destination, though, we don't want to flat out tell you where it is. First of all, we're telling you it's an all inclusive resort. So, that's your first hint because this may come as a surprise to you, but there are no all inclusive resorts in the United States.
That's I don't think that's correct.
Well, that's the way we look at it. There are resorts that have meal plans, there are resorts that have something, but not all inclusives like in the sense that we mean it.
There's a Club Med in, Florida.
No, it's gone. They sold that a while ago, a couple of years ago. Yeah. That was the only one in the United States.
There's a Rio in Miami Beach too.
Okay, that may qualify now. I like Ryu very much, but let's get say hint number one is it's all inclusive. Hint number two is it's not in the United
Yeah, you
States.
just told everybody. That's a given. You can't count what as you already told them that.
So that's hint number two. Um, and I don't know, Mike. We're going to give any more hints. We know it's someplace exotic, someplace outside the borders.
Hint number 3 is, this was a second home to the writer of the James Bond series.
I was going to sing the theme song from James Bond, but I'll spare you that. I think your clue is better. Okay, that's all we're giving you right now. Stay tuned a little bit later for some instructions on how to get your drawings in. And next week we'll give you a little more. Next week maybe we'll talk about which property it's at or which resort brand that we're talking about. And then later from that, what's actually included beyond the basics, some special inclusions. So, a lot to get excited about. And you could win it, guys. This is not like the lottery, not like the Powerball. Your chances are not, one in a million moons. Your chances are much better here just with our intimate audience at No Tourists Allowed. So please enter to win.
Take advantage. Yeah, take advantage.
Mike, there's been some other interesting news. Particularly, it's always interesting to hear what uh, customer feedback is about particular airlines because we all make that choice. Many of us make that choice constantly, almost every week. So we've got to choose what airline to fly on. But even if you're only taking a vacation once a year, shame on you. But even if that's all you're doing, you want to make sure that you get what you're paying for. You want to get good service. You want to get reliable service. And so it's good to know what the feedback is about airlines. And there was a recent survey.
The American Customer Satisfaction Index has just been released just this week, and this survey rates different components or different verticals in the travel industry. And what we're going to focus on today is talk about airlines. So the good news is that the travel industry is back. We're kind of, I think, fully over COVID. Business travel is come back to the pre-pandemic levels, and it sounds like the airlines have really raised their game. So, in this survey, which is done every year, has been done for quite some time, most of the airlines have actually increased, and the rating is basically done on customer satisfaction, right? So, how satisfied? It's like a NPS score. How satisfied were you with the flight that you just took, right? So, um, of the 10 airlines, and this is focused on US carriers too, by the way, guys. Of the 10 airlines, I think all but 2 have gone up. And there's some surprising results here, James. I got to tell you, I'm surprised.
I was not surprised when we were talking about it. I guessed who the number one airline is because they've been in that position. They've had that feedback for a while now, and because that airline has grown quite a bit. But should we back into it? Maybe start a little further down the list and talk about the top three or something
Oh, let's start at the bottom. I think it's
at the bottom.
at the bottom, and I don't think anybody would have a problem guessing who is at the bottom of the 10 largest airlines in America in terms of customer satisfaction. It would be Spirit Airlines. Yeah. There's lots of memes and things on social media about, what you get when you fly Spirit, but, service I flew them one time, and there certainly was not known for its service when I flew.
I know many people who fly Spirit because the price difference is sometimes, pretty extreme. Although here's a really great example where you have to watch that drip pricing, right? And to be able to have a bag, to be able to even select a seat requires an additional fee. And so when you add it all up, I've seen examples where that Spirit fare actually is as much as or more than a more legacy type airline, a bigger brand. But people do love it, and I've seen a lot of people use it. But certainly nobody I know talks about how great the service is or how reliable it is. Right? Because very commonly, people say that flights are canceled when they're not well booked or when equipment is not in the right place and they need to move planes around. So that's common.
Also at the bottom is Frontier, and I have flown Frontier several times. I used to fly to Greenville and had some really nice nonstop service, and I gotta tell you, eh, I had good service on Frontier, but it's number 9 out of 10. But then as we look at kind of the not necessarily low cost carriers, the lowest rated, what I would call legacy carrier, is James's favorite carrier, United.
United.
So they're number 7. JetBlue 6. Delta is 5. Now I was really surprised. This is the one that was really surprising to me. I mean, Delta in other customer satisfaction scores tends to do better.
Well, for years, Delta was the top rated service airline. I mean, that for decades, it feels like.
Yeah. But the frequency between number 5 and number 2, by the way, is 2 points out of a 100 scale. So it's pretty small, but it's Delta 5, Southwest 4. And the other 2 surprising things for me was Allegiant, which is known for low cost, is number 3. Um, that's really interesting. I mean, their seats don't recline. They sell you everything under the sun when you're on the plane. And oftentimes when I go to Florida, there's a lot of nonstops on Allegiant out of this part of the country. So I take Allegiant. But I don't think I would call it top 3 or better than Delta or Southwest. It is. And then number 2 is American, which I tend to fly. And I may be ending that. I'm their top tier frequent flyer, but they've made some really radical changes in how they distribute their product and who gets frequent flyer points and who doesn't. and I think this will be my last year um, as an American Airlines flyer. I qualified for executive platinum, and I'll probably ride it out this year because of the benefits and perks I get. But I don't think I will be loyal after I've been an executive platinum probably for 14 years, and I think I'm done with American after this year,
And then that brings us to the number one position.
which is Alaska.
Alaska's been a growing airline now, one of the largest. They purchased Northwest, was it?
No, Delta purchased Northwest, but they just recently got approved to purchase Hawaiian.
Yeah, before that, there was another big merger too that helped them grow. They have been in the news recently with the missing panel in the side of the plane, but that's not really representative of the experience on Alaska. And I've been hearing for a couple of years now this kind of very positive feedback about Alaska.
Yeah, I've had the chance to fly Alaska a time or two, and it was very good service.
I did too. I'm a United guy, but look, I that's because of where I live. It's a big hub for United. I have top tier status with them, and so on. I think these are all you're choosing between a rock and a hard place, right? None of these experiences are terrific. Air travel is the portion of travel that we all tolerate rather than celebrate. I would much rather arrive at a hotel or a resort or a cruise ship than I would step on an airplane. And that's a shame because it hasn't always been like that. And in fact, the early history of commercial uh, airline flights is something very different. It was a great experience and a high end experience. So the industry has changed a lot, lost its way a lot of the time, in my opinion. And hopefully, renewed competition will bring back some level of customer service. Pete Buttigieg and the uh, Department of Transportation um, put up a website where airline customer service policies are listed one right next to the other in a big chart. So you, as a consumer, as a traveler, you can check that chart, and it's on the uh, um, Department of Transportation's website. You can check that chart and compare airlines and what they offer for the money that you're giving them, and maybe hold them accountable a little bit. And that increased competition will increase the quality of service and will keep the fares lower.
100% agree with you, James. Couldn't agree with you more. We have gotten kind of these hubs have become so dominant in certain markets, and we've spoken about this before, but Charlotte used to be out of that market, 92% was controlled by Americans. So you don't really have a choice in some of these markets. And it's just unfortunate how the consolidation of many carriers just to a few carriers has happened, and I think the government has kind of failed us in that regard, because if you did have choice out of Charlotte or out of New York or Atlanta, prices would only drop and be low. I also ran into some really interesting research that just got published today, as a matter of fact. And the research came from Focusrite Research, which, James, Focusrite is the number one research company in the travel space. If you're looking for data, as we often do, we go to Focusrite looking for the answers, and have for many years. But they came out with a new report that is measuring total revenues for travel in the U.S. And surprisingly, and a lot of people may not realize this, but all travel for 2023 um, in the United States was $475 billion. So almost half $500 billion in bookings were made in the U.S. last year. That's an amazingly large number. Um, and a couple of other interesting things came out of this report, and it was one thing was actually Expedia, which was the nation's largest, our largest OTA, actually slowed down their growth because they say they spent a lot of last year trying to consolidate all its brands. As you know, they own hotels.com, they own Travelocity, several other brands, and they're trying to consolidate those. Um, and you really have two major online travel agency providers. The group that's made up of Expedia and the group that's made up of Booking.com, they represent a very large market share of online travel bookings. Um, the other thing that came out of this report was that for the first time ever, the OTAs collectively passed $1 billion in revenue. So 21% of all the revenue, all the travel revenue booked in 2023 was done through an OTA, which is interesting. The supplier direct made up about 45%, and the rest, which is still a larger chunk than the OTAs, is what is referred to as offline bookings, and so that would be bookings that are made through traditional travel agents. Some of the things that the factors that got these numbers up so high are the ADRs, or average daily rates, for hotels have really grown, and airfares were really high last year. If you think about 2023 as a year, we saw the demand come back, and we saw later in the year the business travel demand come back, and when that comes back, that premium bookers will drive up the revenue for the airlines as well.
100 billion in OTA revenue. Look, they include our companies, Mike and my companies, in that OTA umbrella. But I do make a distinction between going to a website and booking your travel versus working with a travel advisor or being part of a private travel club. Those are different experiences. And, private travel club is going to have a lot of product that's specifically tailored to you. It's going to have benefits that the general public don't get. So there's a lot of value if you use that road into the travel industry. And then working with the travel advisor, same thing. You're going to have someone who gets to know you, listens to and understands your needs. Not everybody wants the same experience or the same thing out of their travel and out of their travel dollar. And a good travel advisor understands that and then is working not only to do all the work for you, because there are a million things you can look at and a million prices, and you just can't do it on your own. You can't get to all of the information you'd need to get to make the same kind of informed decision that a travel advisor can help you make. But in addition to that, the travel advisor is looking out for you and knows where the pitfalls are, knows about travel insurance, knows who the good, reliable suppliers and hotel partners are. So, going to a website, just to a URL to book anything in travel makes no sense to me. Either become part of a really quality travel organization, travel club, or seek out a professional travel advisor. Those are the two ways we'd like to see you, um, chase your travel dreams.
And have an advocate on your side. Well, great. Well, James, I think that wraps up this episode of the podcast. I want to thank all our listeners out there for following us and subscribing. Please tell your friends, and they can go to notouristallowed.com to register for our giveaway, listen to our podcast, get links to previous podcasts, or of course you can subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts.
This was a chit chatty episode of ours. We like to do that sometimes with you. But we do have some big guests coming up. We have a very well known travel journalist, writes for the New York Times and a number of other places, who's coming out with a new book. And so we're going to be talking about that. Her book is about to be published. And we have a wellness travel guru who's going to be talking to us about spas and wellness retreats and the importance of wellness and self care and how travel can help you achieve that. So, those are just two really great guests coming up in the next couple of weeks. Thank you so much for being with us.
Yes, thanks so much. Goodbye, everyone.